Will St Mirren do a cup double over Celtic? It's a Kincardine Bridge derby in the other semi-final. Who is going to come out on top? And is this the last chance to stop St Johnstone? I'm Charlotte Cohen, and alongside Scott Allan and Andy Halliday, we'll take you through two gripping semi-finals. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Friday the 10th of April. And we've a replay of the League Cup final and Sunday's semi.
And the referee blows for full time! The boos from the Celtic supporters completely overdone and outdone by the St Mirren fans!
Can St Mirren overcome Celtic again and reach a second final of the season? It's a Kincardine Bridge derby, and the other one, who is going to come out on top?
There's been a lot of joy, a lot of pride being brought back into the team and the city as well.
Can Dunfermline claim a third Premiership scalp, or will Falkirk make it to the final? And is this Partick Thistle's last opportunity to stay in the Championship title hunt?
It's the second for Partick Thistle. It's just an absolute punt over the top and just cut it back to Alex Samuel, and it's a tap-in. It's Partick Thistle now 2, Dunfermline 0.
We've got everything you need to know about this weekend.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
And alongside me to chat all of those things, Motherwell midfielder Andy Halliday. Morning, Andy. Which game are you most looking forward to this weekend? Don't have to pick a semi-final. You can pick any of the games from any of the divisions if you wish.
Well, I think it's got to be one of the semi-finals. I think in particular the game on Sunday between Celtic and St Mirren, just because obviously we all remember the League Cup final and the occasion that was. St Mirren were excellent on the day, managed to beat Celtic in the League Cup final, and then when you look at the kind of warm-up event which was last week, I thought St Mirren caused Celtic loads of problems in that second half. Celtic not looking particularly convincing again in possession or out of possession. I think St Mirren will probably feel a wee bit frustrated. They never done enough in the final third given some of the control they had at Celtic Park, and like he says, I think they're going to go into the game on Sunday with a lot of confidence they could potentially do a repeat of that League Cup final victory.
Well, alongside us to chat about that, Scott Allan, former Celtic midfielder and East Kilbride coach. Morning, Scott. Same question to you. Which game are you most looking forward to this weekend?
I think just to be different, I think I'll go with the Dunfermline and Falkirk game at Hampden on Saturday. Obviously, you mentioned Kincardine derby, but there is a bit of animosity there between both clubs. There's a bit of needle in it. I think obviously Neil Lennon back to Hampden with Dunfermline, obviously beating Hibs and Aberdeen on the way there. I think it just brings an extra added bonus to it. He's a man motivator. I've had him as a manager, the sort of game that he thrives on. And then the other story of that is John McGlynn and how well he's done with Falkirk this season. I think it would top it off for him if Falkirk were to reach a Scottish Cup final.
Let's start with Celtic. First of all, Celtic St Mirren on Sunday, because the clubs played each other last week, Scott. Celtic won, albeit not very convincingly, and another kind of nervy performance from them. I mean, how do you see this one playing out?
Listen, you obviously have the previous where St Mirren have beat Celtic at Hampden this season, albeit under a different manager, and I would say a different style from what we seen last week at Celtic Park. At the same time, Andy touches on the control that they had in the second half, but the one problem with St Mirren this season has been and that creative play from open play throughout games. What they have done is they've been dangerous from set pieces. Celtic, on the other hand, for me, they know how important this game is. I do feel on the day that Celtic will manage to overcome how poor they've been in terms of performance over 90 minutes this season. I just think St Mirren, Craig Leach, yes, there is lots of positives, and I do think it's a game where St Mirren going out probably with no fear, which is not something you usually would associate with playing Celtic in a semi-final at Hampden. But at the same time, I think Celtic would have learned lessons from last week and understand the importance of this fixture.
That's an interesting point you bring up, Scott, the fear factor around playing Celtic. I mean, you say St Mirren going into this game with no fear. Andy, I'm wondering, what you make of this idea of teams maybe this season not being afraid of playing Celtic anymore.
Well, I can't back this up with any sort of data, but I'd be very, very shocked how many games it's been the last time St Mirren's went to Celtic Park and had 46% possession, managed to string 300 passes together. It just doesn't happen. It probably doesn't happen for many clubs outside potentially Rangers going to Celtic Park. And just I thought how easy it looked for St Mirren to get control of the ball, get easy touches, to play through the thirds. No, you think of Celtic teams over the past few years when you go to Celtic Park, you don't have a second on the ball. No, you're defending for 90% of the game, and the 10% you do have the ball, you're lucky if you can manage to string 2-3 passes together, such as the intensity they play with. That just doesn't seem as if that's the case with Celtic anymore. You look the week previous, yes, they won the game against Dundee, but Dundee having loads of the ball in the second half. Dundee United at Tannadice causing them loads of problems having the ball for the majority of the game. So I think that fear factor comes with, players are a lot more comfortable when they're on the ball compared to off the ball, or should be anyway. So I think when you're a player going to Celtic Park and you get easy touches of the ball, I think you then start to relax, you start to regain your own wee bit of composure. And like he says, I think it seems a lot more easier for teams to not only get on the ball but to play through Celtic than compared to recent years. And the most obvious factor is you look at some of the results that have went against Celtic this year. I think it's 7 defeats this calendar year, potentially 8 now. That just doesn't happen.
I wonder if either of you can remember or know the last time, because Celtic are in real danger here of not winning a trophy this season. I mean, if they lose if they're out the Scottish Cup, they're not in pole position for the league. But can either of you two remember the last time Celtic didn't win a trophy in a season?
2021.
Yeah, I totally forgot
St Johnstone
that
Cup double, Rangers League.
Correct. Because I was thinking
I remember
about it
that with Hibs.
I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, oh, it must have been ages ago. And then obviously, but I mean,
the time before that, Charlotte, that'll be way longer.
I think it was about 2006. We were looking it up yesterday. I think it was 2006, or maybe it was more recent than that. I can't remember. But I mean, this is the thing, Scott. If Celtic don't win a trophy this season, what happens?
What happens? Well, I think the Celtic fans can see with their own eyes that come summer there's going to be huge changes at the club. So there's going to be a new manager put in place. Recruitment has got to be top of that list for me. I think there could be such an overhaul in the squad. Striker position is the main concern and has been since the start of the season with Celtic fans. So that'll be a position where they'll be expecting business to be done early. But there's no, whether Celtic win or don't win the cup, there will be huge changes at Celtic come the summer, and changes needed. There's no getting away from that. And a lot of the players who you've seen for many years at Celtic, I think this will be the last little period of games for the club, and a lot of them will move on. But the same question then applies: is what's the recruitment going to be like? It sounds brilliant on paper getting new players in, but these players have to be right. And Celtic this year, even if you look at January when recruitment was a massive problem, I don't think many have come in January and really added real quality to the side. So recruitment from top to bottom is going to be a necessity for Celtic this year, and they're going to have to hit the ground running, because you obviously see how frustrated the fans were from the start of the season this year, and it started at the Kairat Almaty game. So huge changes coming.
On the flip side of that, St Mirren have been improving under Craig McLeish. Andy, he said himself that he's up for this job if he was to be given it permanently. I mean, surely if he wins this game on Sunday, he puts himself in a very strong position for being a serious contender for the permanent job.
I think if he wins this game Sunday, there'll be a contract for him Monday morning, if anything. But listen, I've been really impressed with him. I think he's came into a side that were really, really struggling. I think it was 6 or 7 games without a win before he took charge. And I was there in Paisley for his first game against Rangers. And I came away from that game thinking, I think St Mirren are in real, real trouble. I think, Scotty touched on it earlier. I just think the lack of the lack of goal-mouth action in the opposition's box, struggling to create chances. I think they're in the bottom two for goals scored this season, even though for me they've got some good strikers at the top end of the pitch. And I was really worrying for them. Now they backed that up with back-to-back victories, two very good ones, it must be said as well, away to Falkirk, who not a lot of sides have beat Falkirk this season. And then they followed that up with that proverbial 6-pointer against Aberdeen, where I thought they were extremely comfortable. So, and without meaning it to sound disrespectful towards the St Mirren previously, they're doing it in a manner that they've not played that type of football for a long period of time. So you hear managers talk about so often where they need a transfer window, they need a pre-season, they need a few weeks. Well, Craig McLeish just turned around St Mirren's style of play in a matter of days, in a matter of 2-3 weeks, and I think it's been really, really impressive how quickly he's managed to do so. Now it's obviously going to be a much bigger task, playing against Celtic at Hampden. But if they can replicate that second half performance at Celtic Park last week and try and be a little bit more creative in that final third, which has been a real issue for them this season, I think they're going into this game with loads of confidence.
Yeah, how much confidence, Scott, can they take from, knowing that they've beaten Celtic in a massive cup game already this season? And I mean, I think Craig McLeish said it in his pre-match presser yesterday. Like, St Mirren have been there, seen it, done it. They must take huge confidence from that.
Yeah, listen, I think when you beat Celtic in a League Cup final, games that you associate with Celtic coming through them and being victorious, that's kind of been the landscape of Scottish football for the last 10 years or so, I think, in the manner which they did. But at the same time, they did play in a different style. So, but player on player, you do think about if we do all our jobs right, we defend well first and foremost, and then we have the ball, we make the right decisions, and you carry a threat, then they will be full of confidence. I think last week they'll take the confidence from the things Andy touched on, and that is being able to settle on the ball. I think that is a huge thing, especially in a game like that where people always talk about don't let the occasion get to you. I think being able to settle on the ball and make passes is one of the things that actually calms you down as a player on the pitch. But at the same time, there's no getting away. They have to carry more of a threat. At the same time, they'll maybe counter that. We'll say if they do get set pieces or whatever, they look like scoring goals. They've done obviously 2 goals away at Falkirk from set pieces. So there is ways where they can hurt Celtic. I just feel on the day, if you're a Celtic player, that you know the importance of that game, and that you might have the benefit of playing them last week, knowing second half wasn't anywhere near the levels expected of a Celtic player. If they can maintain the early part of the game, Celtic were okay. They started the game quite well last week, I thought. And that key position for Celtic is going to be number 9 again, which has been the main talking point throughout the course of the season. But I think you've got to give huge credit to Craig McLeish, as Andy says, to change the style of a team with the profile of players that he does have at his disposal. I think he deserves enormous credit. If he was to overcome Celtic at the weekend, then you'd have to give him the job for me, because I think once he got to the summer and managed to get players to suit his system, he could do something really good with St Mirren.
Well, you can listen to all of the action on Sunday. Off the Ball is on air at 12, followed by Sports Sound at 1:30. Well, on Saturday, as we have discussed, it's one of Scotland's fiercest rivalries. Scott, you touched on it at the start of the programme. These games are always a brilliant atmosphere. I mean, and no better than at Hampden for a semi-final.
None better. I think obviously both sets of fans will be really nervous. Obviously so much at stake for both teams. Neil Lennon and Dunfermline had been on a really good run up until last weekend. Obviously losing to Partick Thistle and then having the game midweek, which probably isn't ideal in terms of preparation. Look at it from Neil Lennon, but I just think when he comes to Hampden, he can be blockbuster with some of the team talks. And then against that, John McGlynn, as I touched on at the start of the show, if he's able to come through this game and get Falkirk to a Scottish Cup final after what he's done with Falkirk over the last 3 years, it would be incredible. And I do, obviously, for me, Falkirk do go into the game as huge favourites. I think the manner in which they go 2-0 against Rangers last week, and if they just see at half time, I probably think Rangers don't score, then go on to score 6 goals. But they did, and there'll be lots of that game. you imagine Falkirk and John McGlynn's obviously well spoken about them doing analysis on games, so that would have been a hard watch for some of the Falkirk players at the start of the week. So yeah, again, both sets of fans and both sets of players knowing what's at stake. But Falkirk, what a story that would be as well.
And that's the thing for Dunfermline, Andy. They've already knocked out 2 Premiership teams. Why can't they do a third?
Yeah, and it wasn't even just the results against the 2 Premiership teams. It was the manner, of the victory as well. It was a last minute goal against Hibs, 1-0 in a game I thought they played very well in, and then they followed that up with a 3-0 victory against Aberdeen, where it was really, really convincing. So it was 2 clean sheets against 2 Premiership sides. Now I do think they're coming up against arguably the form team out of the 3 going into that game. Because, like Scotty said, Falkirk, they've almost been in a season with so many big stories. They've almost been the main success story of the season, along with Hearts. And I'm actually really, really looking forward to the game. I still remember the 2 games in the Championship last season on Sky. 2 fantastic games, both games that brought brilliant crowds in the Championship. And I think sometimes there's been this debate over the years that when you get these semi-finals between a Championship opposite position and one of the smaller clubs in the top flight, can it be moved to a smaller stadium where it fills out? I think it will be bouncing in Hampden tomorrow. I think both sides are capable of bringing huge crowds, and I think it's a game that's going to be really exciting. Like Scott said, it's not just about Dunfermline, it's a kind of Neil Lennon factor when it comes to these games. Sometimes he quite enjoys being the underdog. He comes up with a game plan and manages to stifle teams and get results from it. And I think with Dunfermline having such a young side, bringing in a huge turnaround in players over the last couple of years, loads of young players. I think they've had a fantastic season so far, sitting in that playoff position, getting to the Scottish Cup semi-final. So no doubt whatsoever that Falkirk will be favourites, but I think it's a game that's going to be a really entertaining one.
I wonder, Scott, how you think Dunfermline are going to approach the game, because as you've both touched on, this is absolutely massive for them. Getting to a final would be huge. You think they must be thinking, we just want to go all out, leave nothing out there, and just proper have a good go at it.
Yeah, well, I think obviously a Scottish Cup semi-final, that kind of speaks for itself, Charlotte. The things you speak about should just be a given for the Dunfermline players going out of Hampden. Chance to get to a Scottish Cup final by overcoming your fiercest rivals, as he says, in Falkirk, which will be difficult, but at the same time, they things, again, I've said it a few times today about what's at stake. Players know the chance to get to a Scottish Cup final. If you can overcome Falkirk, they have the confidence of beating obviously Aberdeen and Hibs on the way there, albeit at East End Park. For me, they will come up against a really difficult team, and I think the Falkirk players will be the same. There are a lot of young players in their team. They'll just see this as another step on the journey, which over the course of the last few seasons has been incredible. But Neil Lennon, no doubt, will have the players fired up, and then it's up to the players to carry out what's been asked of them, and it will be a day for heroes on both sides, whoever's to score that winning goal.
On the other hand, if Falkirk make the final, Andy, is that John McGlynn in line for his 3rd Manager of the Year award in a row?
A knighthood.
A statue.
I think, of course, at this moment in time, I think Derek McInnes is in pole position, given that Hearts are still top of the table. Although, Derek says for himself they'll be really disappointed with their cup competition performances this year. Obviously, going out to St Mirren on penalties, and then going out to, like he says, the other Manager of the Year nominee, John McGlynn's Falkirk. But again, you can't speak highly enough for what they've done this season. It's so easy to kind of rule them out with a Championship opposition, being in League One 2 years ago, to come up to the top flight and think they'll really struggle. But it just shows you what good coaching does, good recruitment, having a style of play, being able to bring in players that suit that style of play. It just shows you how far that can potentially take a team. And to sit in the top 6 positions, given where they were a couple of years ago. Scotty's East Kilbride have got a game against Edinburgh City at the weekend. It was 2 years ago in January that Falkirk played Edinburgh City in League One. It was a mid-table clash. Now Falkirk are sitting in the top 6, Edinburgh City are bottom of League Two. So, the trajectory, the journey that they've been on over the last couple of seasons is incredible. And if they can follow that up with a Scottish Cup final, and then obviously dream even further with potentially going to win it, It's manager of the century, never mind manager of the year.
Your weekend listening starts with the Saturday show at 9 o'clock on BBC Radio Scotland, followed by Sports Sound at 12, and then Off the Ball is on at 5 o'clock. Well, that is not the only football happening this weekend. In the Championship, Scott, St Johnstone's title if they win on Tuesday. I mean, is this Thistle's kind of last chance saloon for them?
Yeah, they obviously get to put that pressure on with that away game at Airdrie this weekend, but I do feel if St Johnstone come through their game on Tuesday, that'll wrap things up for them. Listen, they have been consistent throughout the season. There's the top two positions. And Thistle have had moments, it's ebbed and flowed, had at times where Thistle had to get the win to then put real pressure on. They haven't managed to come up fit, and then you're going week to week. Similar to what we're seeing in all the leagues in Scotland, to be honest. It's been an amazing journey for all the Scottish football fans throughout the league. But I do feel, looking at that St Johnstone squad, it is really strong, and at this business end of the season, I just think they'll have too much, and they'll come through that on Tuesday.
You touch on things running close this season. In League One, it's the same. Inverness and Stenhousemuir look like they're going to go all the way to the wire, Andy. I mean, who of those two do you see edging it?
I think it's got to be Inverness. Obviously, they're sitting top of the table at this moment in time. I think you look at their goal difference, you look at the amount of goals that they've conceded this year, it's been extremely impressive. They obviously had their game in hand during the week against Peterhead, which they managed to come through. They've played Stenhousemuir away a couple of weeks ago, which you felt as if it could have been a season-defining game. They got a point in that game. They'll be disappointed that it wasn't more, given there probably was a bit of a contentious penalty for Stenhousemuir. But even if Stenhousemuir don't go up, I mean, what a job Gary Naismith's done for a team that's not won a league title in their history to win League Two, to then come straight into League One and potentially be going for a back-to-back promotions is incredible. And I think if they get even that playoff spot, they've got to be going into the playoffs with so much confidence, given how well they've done this season. So I must admit, I do edge it towards Inverness, quite in particular because of that defensive record. But yeah, what a job that Stenhousemuir and Gary Naismith's done.
Finally, we have our own East Kilbride coach to give us insight into League Two. I mean, you were touching on it before we started, Scott, nervy times, but how much have you enjoyed this season?
Yeah, I think obviously retiring from playing in the summer and then joining East Kilbride, I just felt it was the right fit for me in terms of the way how we want to play football first and foremost. Then to go and see how it comes to fruition on the park on a Saturday for me has been a real learning curve, but at the same time really enjoyable. I speak about the nervy moments. Sometimes it is harder at the side of the pitch because you can't control anything. And there's been times at this season where we've showed a lot of character. I think we've been trailing Spartans by 8 points twice throughout the course of the season and managed to recoup the points, and we went on a really good run there, a really good winning streak. And now it's that business end of the season where we have to go and get more 3 points. Obviously, Edinburgh City at home on Saturday, a game where we were obviously going to, as favourites, Edinburgh City already finished bottom of the league. But like I said, it's now up to the players to go out and carry out the information they're given during the week at training and go and try and win a title.
How confident do you feel?
I feel really confident. I think a home game obviously makes you confident. I think last week away at Forfar, it was yes, we lost the game, but we were really disappointed with the performance. So I think players and us as a coaching staff know where that went wrong, and also looking to put it right on Saturday in a huge game for us at home.
Well, finally, Scotland women are playing Belgium in their next World Cup qualifying group game. They drew 1-1 at home on Tuesday night, scored a very, very late goal. But Andy, I wonder if is it sometimes easier, do you think, to go and play away from home and maybe feel like the pressure's slightly off a little bit?
I mean, I always feel like your advantage is at home, given that the Scotland's women team have always had a good following with people to come and watch them. They had a good cluster of fans watching the game during the week, in a game that I thought they were extremely competitive. Obviously took to a really late goal for them to secure the point, but it's been a promising campaign so far. I've always got one particular eye on Kirsty Howard, being a good friend of mine, hoping that she comes on the pitch and potentially gets that winner. So I'm hoping that Kirsty manages to get her opportunity against Belgium. And I think any positive result, I think again this is probably one that you would take a point in the context of the campaign in general. But Belgium are a good side. I think they proved that during the week as well.
Absolutely. Well, you can watch that match live from 7:20 on BBC Alba on Saturday evening. Right, finally, to finish our rapid quickfire prediction questions, you know the drill. Just one word, as brief as possible. First up, come to you, Andy. What tie is going to be the coupon buster this weekend?
I'm going Celtic St Mirren.
Scott?
Yeah, I would go Celtic and St Mirren just out the two ties. But I do feel Celtic will come through it.
Where, Andy, is it going to kick off?
East Kilbride, Edinburgh City, when it filters through, Spartans have dropped points.
Scott?
That's right. I'm going to go Falkirk Dunfermline, kick off, obviously the derby. And what's at stake for both clubs. I think it'll be an amazing atmosphere at Hampden.
Andy, who is making it to the cup final?
Falkirk and St Mirren.
Scott?
Falkirk and Celtic.
Which team's fans, Andy, will be happiest come Sunday night?
Falkirk and St Mirren.
You need to go with it. You need to go with St Mirren. Falkirk and Celtic.
And finally, Andy, who is going to be making the headlines?
John McGlynn.
John McGlynn.
Nice one. Well, that is all we've got time for. Many thanks to Scott and Andy, and thank you for listening. Remember, we are here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy your weekend.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
It caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.